It's time for the Phil Ferguson Show, only on Secular Media Network.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Phil Ferguson, and you are listening to the Phil Ferguson Show. This is show number 173, and we are now in the summer of 2016, and it is hot, hot, hot. Walked out this door this morning to take trash to the curb, and it was only in the 70s, but literally 100% humidity. So as soon as I walked outside, I just started sweating. It was like walking into a kind of a lukewarm sauna. With the expectations that we're going to be in the low 90s today, which is not too awful bad, and I know many listeners live in warmer places, so forgive my rantings here about low 90s, but low 90s with really high humidity is not something I enjoy, so I just wanted to get that out there. A couple of follow-ups on last week. We talked to James Croft was our interviewee, and we talked about Orlando a little bit. I got a strange couple of emails from some Trump supporters, apparently. Trump supporters listen to my show. Welcome. I'm surprised you listen, but okay, you're welcome to listen all you want. And they were surprised by, I don't know, what they perceived as my gesticulations, my jumping through hoops, my squirming around when James was talking about a whole laundry list of causes that might have been related to Orlando. And somehow they perceived something that I don't think existed, that I probably agreed with them that the one and only cause of this was Islam. So I wanted to make sure I set the record straight that I agree with almost everything James Croft said. I agree with what he said, that this is a complicated situation. I will state that Islam and Christianity are a big part of the problem, but it's not that simple. And I'm delighted for you that you live in a simplistic world that you can just say that Islam is the one cause of all of our problems. And if we can just ban those people from coming over, like Trump said, that it's going to fix all these problems, that's a simplistic worldview. One could argue. I think I would. It's a delusional worldview. It is not the one and only cause of the problem. It's not the one and only cause of this situation. There's a lot of potential causes, and we don't even have all the information. And even if it was the cause, if my candidate came out within hours of 49 people being massacred and just jumped to, oh, I'm right and I know everything, I would be offended even if he was right, and he's not. So I just wanted to get that off my chest. If that bothers you, bummer. Listen to some other show. Not my concern. Two topics I want to cover today. Again, one of these is something that just kind of came up. These things never seem to stop. But this time, it's my own issue. So my parents bought life insurance from, it doesn't matter, let's see, who was this? Liberty Insurance. I think back in around 78 for me and my two brothers. And it was a simple $10,000 life insurance policy, and they were doing what they thought was a good thing and, giving us life insurance. It wouldn't benefit me any because they get the insurance if I die. And I don't think now, as an adult, as a parent with kids who are, 19 and 20, that me getting $20,000 or $10,000 when they die is really it's not going to make me feel better. I would rather not have the money and have my kids. So all that being said, they were trying to do the right thing because someone told them they should have insurance. So they bought this insurance, and they paid $121 a year to get $10,000 of life insurance on each of their three sons, me and my two brothers. And I found out about this somewhere in the early 90s, after I had graduated from my master's at the University of Illinois, and at the time was short on cash. And my dad told me about this policy, and it had built up a little bit of a cash value, maybe like $2,000. And I said, well, if this is my life insurance policy, can I just cancel it and get the cash value? And he explained why I shouldn't. And I needed the money. I wanted the money. So I said, I want the money. And he said, okay. So he canceled it, or so I thought. And he sent me the money. Well, it turns out what happened was he took money out of his own account and sent it to me, an amount equal to what I knew was the cash value, and he kept paying the insurance policy. Well, around 96, and this is 19 years, roughly 20 years, 19 years of paying on the policy, he got informed by the insurance company that it was now self-funded. So he'd put in sufficient amount of money over 20 years that he could now stop making contributions, but the amount of the cash value may not grow very much, but it's now self-funded, assuming these other things happen going forward, and he decided to stop paying in. So he put in a total of $2,300, actually $2,299 for each of us, for each one of the three policies. And I had long since forgot about these policies, and my mom, who we moved a few months ago to an apartment close to us so we can have more time with her, she recently found these in a box of files. And I just got off the phone literally minutes ago with the life insurance company, and they explained to me that they are no longer active and that they've not been active since 2011. So not active means there's no life insurance policy. There's no $10,000 life insurance policy on my life. And, of course, it has no cash value. It no longer exists because when my parents stopped making the contributions, the cash value apparently declined, or the interest wasn't sufficient, even though they were led to believe that in 96. And so some 20 years later, the policy has lapsed or become not active in the fancy schmancy words that the insurance company told me, not active. So that means the $2,299 that my parents invested in a whole life policy with the expectation that if they contributed long enough, would forever provide a death benefit of $10,000, that money is now gone. That money is gone. There is no life insurance. There is no cash value. And this is the thing that I see from time to time. It doesn't always work out this way, where whole life policies, which theoretically, as long as you follow the rules that they lay out, will last in perpetuity. It will last forever. But it lasts forever only if conditions A, B, and C come to be true. And if one of those conditions aren't true, if the market didn't make enough money, if interest rates weren't high enough, if the company suffered losses beyond what they expected, they can then reduce the amount of the payout or the interest that they're giving you on the cash value because they haven't made enough money, and it's something outside of your control. Not even the market. The company just says, oh, we haven't made enough profits, so we're going to pay you less. It creates a situation where the policy starts to go down and down in value until it becomes worth zero in cash value, and there's no new payments, and they're not going to pay for your insurance, and so the policy lapses. The other thing I did is I took the $121 that they put in starting in 1978, and 78, I assumed it was at the middle of the year, and 79 was at the beginning of the year, and each year afterwards was at the beginning of the year, and took the returns of the S&P 500. And if they had invested that $121 in an account with my name, I would, of course, not have a $10,000 life insurance policy. But the ironic thing is I would have over $11,000 in 1995, which would be 1 year before they stopped making contributions. I would already have more than $10,000. So again, don't put money into any more money than you need to into life insurance, and if you do, buy term and invest the rest. So here's a case: if they had invested all of the $121 by 1995, I would have had $11,255 more than the actual death benefit of the policies, and it would have been in my name. I could have had it. So instead of my dad handing me $2,000, he could have given me $11,000. Now, if that money had been left to grow since 1995 and since 1996 when my parents stopped contributing towards the whole life policy, if that money had just grown year after year after year in the S&P 500, today it would be worth almost $55,000. Instead, we have nothing. I have nothing. My parents have nothing. There's no life benefit. This policy that was supposed to last forever. There was no value there. All of that money is gone. So the insurance company took all of that money, invested it, made whatever they did or didn't make on their own risks. But myself, my two brothers, and my parents have no value. Of course, keep in mind in our situation, there were 3 policies, so it's not just $55,000. It's $165,000 that probably what my parents should have done is invested for their long-term retirement. So my mom could have an additional $165,000 now in her portfolio to help pay her bills and or leave to her children when she eventually passes. But that's all gone. So when people ask why I don't like life insurance, here's another example of something very simple. It seems very harmless, and it's just $121, and it gives your kids a little bit of life insurance. Don't do it. And if you really, really want to have life insurance on your kids, fine. Get term and don't pay the extra cost for a whole life insurance policy. So that's that little segment. And I've got to do a thing on taxes here in a minute because I promised you I would. And, of course, later in the show, we are going to talk to Larry Decker. He's the executive director of the Secular Coalition for America and all the events that happened in relationship to his organization and politicians around the Reason Rally. So hang on, we're going to do that. But next, we're going to talk about taxes. And I'm going to focus on what turnover means in relationship to taxes. Index funds often will have 3 to 5% turnover, at least for a U.S.-based large cap index fund. But some small cap index funds and international index funds might have turnovers of 10, 15, maybe even 20%. So for the index portion of this analysis, I'm going to use a 20% turnover. For regular in mutual funds in the U.S. stock market, depending on where I looked, the turnover ratio is anywhere from 80% to 120% to 140%. So I'm just going to assume a turnover of 100%. What turnover means is that if that mutual fund has 80 stocks in the fund, that 80 of them will be bought and sold within 1 year. So there's 80 positions, and there's 80 changes in position for 100% turnover. We're going to look at a couple that has an income of around 152, and they're in a marginal tax rate of 28%. And anything that's a long-term gain or a capital gain will be taxed at 15%. We're going to start with a portfolio of $100,000. We're going to do this for 30 years, and we're going to assume all this is constant and that things don't change. I know that's unrealistic in the real world, but we're just going to do this for comparison purposes. In the first year, the $100,000 portfolio makes $10,000 or 10%. 3% of that growth, or 3% of the total 10%, or 30% of the growth, we're going to call as dividends. The reason I'm using 3% of the growth is that the return for the S&P 500, the dividends have been about 3.4% over the last 46 years. Again, you can check that for yourself on Wikipedia, S&P 500. And the current rate of dividends for the S&P 500 is around 2.2, 2.3. So I've got to pick a number somewhere. I'll use the same percentages in both examples. So with the index fund, you have $3,000 or 30% of the $10,000 or 3% of the total $100,000 is dividends. That $3,000 is taxed at the marginal tax rate. And like I said, for our theoretical couple, that's 28%. So the tax is $840. The other $7,000 is as capital gains. And because the turnover is 20% in my theoretical model, because virtually all index funds are at that level or below for turnover, I figured it's just a reasonable number to look at. So 20% of the 7,000 or 7% or 70% of the 10%, that's a lot of numbers to do on a radio show. My apologies. The tax on that is going to be $210. So at the end of the first year, because you have to pay taxes out of this, and it's all in a taxable account, you don't go from 100 to 110. You go from 100 to $108, $950. Not a real big deal. Now, in a regular mutual fund, you make the same